And I'm joined now by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who led the coalition of states challenging the president's immigration actions. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I want to get your initial reaction, and I want to know what you would say to all of those people who came out of the shadows thinking that they would be protected by this.
So I think this is a great day for not just Texas, but it's a great day for the 26-state coalition and for Americans, because for us it wasn't about the immigration policy. Congress needs to decide what that's going to be. This was about the rule of law. There was no statutory authority for the president to do this, and the Constitution, separation of powers, because our Constitution divides powers and gives different responsibility to the president and Congress, and in this case the president was stepping into the role of Congress, and that was really our argument.
But Attorney General Paxton, what do you say to the critics, so many of them who would argue you are effectively leading the movement, which is going to lead to families being torn apart, people being deported?
So I always, this is a representative form of government. We have elected officials. There's supposed to be debate. There's supposed to be elections of congressmen and congresswomen. And those people are the ones that are given the responsibility under our form of government to make those decisions. So I would say it's in the hands of Congress.
But isn't that effectively the result of this, and the fact that it's now deadlocked in the Supreme Court? Doesn't it open up many people to being deported, millions of people?
That's why we have elections. That's why we have elections of Congress every 2 years. It's up to them to make those decisions. If we move to a system where one person, effectively the president, whoever they are, whether it ends up being Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, ultimately making the decision for the rest of it, that is not the way our government was set up, and that's what we're all fighting for, is that continued form of government where we have a separation of powers and where Congress makes the legislative decisions and the president implements those.
But practically speaking, and I understand what you're saying, but as you know, this hasn't passed through Congress, and that's why the president took this executive action. Doesn't it practically make sense to try to have these people stay here, pay taxes, determine a way to have them stay here legally?
I think there's all kinds of good ideas floating around about what should be done about immigration. What we're saying is one person can't make that decision for the rest of us. They can't unilaterally change the law. That's just not the way a representative form of government works, and so that's really our fight. Immigration policy is up to somebody else. The states are just saying you can't have the president just unilaterally implement it without congressional approval.
Okay, well, let's take that point that you're making. The court effectively didn't rule on that. So were you disappointed that they didn't pass a judgment on your key argument, that this isn't up to one person?
Well, so it was a win for us. I mean, obviously, I'd like an 8-0 vote. Everybody likes an 8-0 vote. But we did win at the district court level. We did win again twice at the Fifth Circuit level.
But what happened today wasn't a win for you. It was a win in terms of the optics. But the Supreme Court did not rule in your favor.
Well, it was a win for us because when it is a tie, it goes back to the decision of the Fifth Circuit, where we did win. And so that now it will go back to the trial court for a trial on the merits. And so we're optimistic about how that's going to turn out.
I want to go back to the argument that you laid out about this. You said, quote, rewriting national immigration law requires the full and careful consideration of Congress, not the political will and assertion of one person, which is basically the argument that you are making again today. So does that effectively mean that you oppose Donald Trump's immigration policies, his call to build a wall and deport 11 million people?
No, I'd say it's the same thing. I would say he needs to go through Congress exactly. I don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat making these decisions. What I care about is that the process is followed, that the constitutional form of government that we set up is followed. And so if Donald Trump has an idea, he can't just unilaterally do things that are outside of the law. He's going to have to take it through Congress, and he's going to have to work that process where people have input, there's debate, and there's a vote.
Donald Trump seems to be arguing that he would have the power to do that, to build a wall, to have Mexico pay for it. So you're saying tonight that he's inaccurate on that?
No, I haven't looked at the statutory authority for whether he can do it or not do it. If it's in statute, if he has the authority to do it, then so be it. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter to me whether it's President Obama or President Trump. If they don't have the statutory authority to do it, they need to go through Congress the way the system was designed by our founders.
Well, just to be clear, does the president have the authority, based on your determination, to build a wall unilaterally?
I have not researched that. That is not what our case is about. Our case was very specific about the executive action taken by President Obama. And remember, this is a president that said, I don't have the authority to do this. He said it over